Hello, hello. Hi, gang. Hi, everybody. Happy Saturday. All right. So here is the Saturday poll question at Smerconish.com. Will the public ever see the government files on Epstein? Will the public ever see the government files on Jeffrey Epstein? I don't know, is my short answer. I don't know, because I believe it's going to get through the House of Representatives as soon as Tuesday afternoon or Tuesday evening, and then it goes to the Senate. And I think that the Senate is going to have a very hard time resisting the public sentiment and the vote coming out of the House for them to release. So I feel confident in saying it comes out of the House and it comes out of the Senate. But what does President Trump do? Because he is resisting. And the more he resists, and I'm going to say this not only to you today, but I'm going to say it on CNN today, the more he resists, the more that it fuels speculation. Thank you to my friends at Parks Casino. If you're looking for a great stocking stuffer this holiday season, how about show tickets for the Excite Center? And whoever's on your list, they've got something that will suit their interest. Classic rockers Grand Funk Railroad. We're an American band. I keep threatening to sing it. 16-time Grammy winner David Foster and Catherine McPhee. The Marshall Tucker Band, Heard It in a Love Song. And Jefferson Starship, Alan Cumming is coming. Piano Men, that's a tribute to Billy Joel and to Elton John. Comedian Tracy Morgan in March. Comedian Kathleen Madigan, Melissa Etheridge. So many things going on. And in December as well, the a cappella sounds of Straight No Chaser. Comedian Kem Jung from Hangover, and Get the Lead Out, which is the Zeppelin tribute. ParksCasino.com/entertainment. You got to be 21. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Yesterday at Smerconish.com, 34,016 votes were cast on the poll question. I'm thrilled with that number. I thought it was a great conversation. There was a lot of caller interest. I wasn't sure if it worked as a poll question, but clearly it did. Why has the median age for U.S. home buyers risen to 59? The median age for U.S. home buyers, all home buyers, is now 59. And if you go back to 1980, not that long ago, the number was half that. It's really remarkable. It's really remarkable. And affordability carried the day. 84.9% said affordability, 15.1% said shifting priorities in terms of the answer. I heard from a lot of callers here yesterday. You know, what did one guy say? He said, these Gen Xers and these Gen Zers, they're spending all their money on lattes, and iPhones, and not doing enough saving. Oh, the kids today. I'm sure it's a function of them getting situated later in life, but it's affordability. But it's largely affordability. Let's talk about today's poll question at Smerconish.com. Are we going to get to see all the Epstein documents? There are a couple of updates in the last 24 hours on this story, and all speak to the continued resistance by the administration to just come clean. Story number one is that at President Trump's request, DOJ, Pam Bondi, has now tapped the U.S. attorney to conduct an investigation of a number of high-profile people whose names show up in the Epstein emails. Everybody, it seems, is going to be investigated who's a celebrity and shows up in those documents, save Donald Trump, except for Trump. I mean, it's just incredible, and I'll tell you more about that in just a moment. The individual is his last name is Clayton. He's a former head of the SEC and lawyer at Sullivan and Cromwell, so somebody with some real credentials who now is the U.S. attorney in the Southern District of New York, who's going to play that role for Pam Bondi and for President Trump. Update number two is that the House vote could come as soon as Tuesday. Now, here's what I'm keeping my eye on. There were only 4 Republicans who signed the discharge petition, but for the 4, Thomas Massie, Lauren Boebert, Marjorie Taylor Greene, and Nancy Mace. Without those 4, then the release of these documents would not be advancing to the point where everybody in the House has to vote. Watch that number balloon. I think there are 219 Republicans in the caucus right now. So it'll go for, I suspect, and this could be a good poll question on Tuesday, like what's the over under on the number of Republicans who, even though they wouldn't sign the discharge petition, which took courage, now are being shamed into voting for release of the Epstein documents. There are 219 in the Republican caucus. I could see that number being over 100. Because once that train starts heading down the tracks, who wants to be the individual held accountable for voting no? What possibly is the justification for voting no on a release of the Epstein documents? The only justification is privacy. But we can handle that through redactions. So, and then related, update number 3 is that Marjorie Taylor Greene has now had a total break with the president. You'll see the story in the Smerconish.com daily newsletter today, such that he called her wacky and said that he will support a primary opponent of Marjorie Taylor Greene. So she's having some kind of an epiphany moment. I think the first words out of my mouth on my CNN commentary this morning will be, resistance only fuels speculation. Resistance only fuels speculation. And look, here's the bottom line. If I were President Trump, I wouldn't want to be mentioned in these Epstein emails, but Democrats took their best shot. Democrats took their best shot insofar as they cherry-picked 3 from more than 20,000. And on Wednesday, they put out the 3. And they did it, I think, in a deceiving way. They did it in a deceiving way where they redacted Virginia Giuffre's name. So it created the impression that Trump had spent hours at Mar-a-Lago with one of the victims, actually not at Mar-a-Lago, at Epstein's house. And you wondered, wow, who is that? That's a terrible thing. But Virginia Giuffre, in her book, gave Trump a clean bill of health. So the idea is that her name was redacted so as to make it seem more nefarious than it actually is. If I were Trump, I wouldn't want to be referenced in any of those emails. They might be cringeworthy, but there's no evidence of any criminal conduct. There's no evidence of any criminal conduct. So why all the resistance? It just makes him look guilty. And I'll give you a great example, and I'm gonna pop this up for the benefit of those watching on YouTube, and I thank you for that. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Take a look at this one email as just an example of several. But this is an email that is April 2nd, 2011. April 2nd, 2011. At that time, Trump is the Celebrity Apprentice TV star. He's talking about running for president. Epstein is emerging from his legal troubles in Florida. He's still years removed from being indicted in the Southern District of New York. So Epstein, writing to Ghislaine Maxwell, I want you to realize that that dog that hasn't barked is Trump. Blank spent hours at my house with him. He has never once been mentioned, police chief, etc. I'm 75% there. And we've spoken on radio about, well, what is that reference? Trump is that dog that hasn't barked yet. Barry Levine was on radio with me yesterday. He'll be on television with me today, who wrote this great book, The Spider. You can see that mine is all tabbed and marked up. And he advances this theory that perhaps this is Epstein saying the reason we haven't heard from Donald Trump is maybe he's turned on me and maybe he's cooperating. In other words, the question that gets raised is whether Trump was actually an informant who played a role in bringing Epstein down. To which I then say to Barry Levine, well, why wouldn't Trump be shouting that from the mountaintops? You'd think right now he would want to be saying, I'm the guy, who brought him in. And Barry's answer to that was to say that it would just be too contradictory of all the things that Trump has been saying about not having had a relationship with Jeffrey Epstein and trying to keep him at a distance, that Trump has kind of dug himself into a hole. So, yeah, that email, I really really parsing these emails. So what's about to happen? What's about to happen? Because 4 Republicans signed the discharge petition. The House of Representatives is going to have a series of procedural votes on Tuesday, and then maybe the vote to release the Epstein files. I love this because there's not enough accountability. There's not enough opportunity where members of Congress have to vote yay or nay, and then we know where they stood. But it seems like this is going to be one of those votes, and then it'll go to the Senate. I think the Senate is going to have a hard time not doing the same thing as the House. And then the question is, what's the president going to do? I mean, the obvious answer is he's going to veto it because every step of the way he's been an obstructionist. But I don't know. Go vote at Smerconish.com. Answer today's poll question. Will these Epstein documents be released and see the light of day? Thank you for watching on YouTube. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel and set yourself up for notifications because you can see what we got going on. There's a lot more video content to come, and I don't want you to miss a thing. Thanks.